Okay. Alpesh, are we good there?
Yes, we good now.
Okay, guys. Let's look at conventional banking and borrowing and how that works. Now, this is as basic and as elementary as we can get, but that blue box is a checking account. Remember that. That's conventional process. All right? That's a deposit that goes in. Green is our money. Deposits go in. We live our life. We chase our life out of that checking account. We pay our bills. Right? That little box at the bottom is a surplus. We put in more deposits. We pay more bills. And we go month in and month out. And that little green box is our surplus. Discretionary cash flow. Positive income. Whenever you want us to classify it, that's the difference between income and expenses. Right? And we just wash, rinse, and repeat that process on a monthly basis. Now, if we look at equity optimization, we're not making deposits and doing spending. We're leveraging and distributing our income. So there's a line of credit. There's a debt. Right? Now, this works in the opposite direction of the checking account. Income goes in, and it pushes the balance down. Keep in mind, that red portion, that's the balance. The more red there is, the more interest that we pay. So when our income goes in, pushes that balance down, and our income becomes an interest savings mechanism because they can only charge us interest on the red portion, not the green portion. And then we live our life just like we do out of our checking account. Money comes out of the line of credit, pay our bills. The next month, there's that same surplus number from above. Now it's being applied against the debt balance, the red. And we can wash, rinse, and repeat that process. Income goes back in. We pay our expenses out. And we end up with the same thing that we had on the conventional side. Now we just have it on the debt side of the ledger. All right? Now when it comes to debt, oh, shit. That's great. Sorry about that. I'm going to have to deal with that here in a second. My Outlook just shut down, so I'm going to have to deal with that here in a second. But when it comes to debt, you guys, the balance is what costs you the money, not the interest rate. The higher the balance, because the balance is what they use to charge interest. So the higher the balance, the more interest we're going to pay. All right? What we're looking at here is that on the conventional side, oh, shit. Hang tight, I'm just going to shut that down. All right, so on the conventional side, when our money goes into a checking account, our balance is working on the other side, charging us interest. But if we can get our income against the debt balance, reducing that balance and saving us interest, that's good use of the money because it's got no value sitting up in the checking account. All it does is sit there, wait for us to chase our life around. When it's down here on the bottom side, it's saving us interest. Our income becomes an interest savings mechanism as we move through the process. So, if we look at a month-by-month situation, conventional checking account, money in, there's our surplus. It just grows and grows and grows and grows and accumulates in the checking account. When we're on the debt side of it, same surplus, same amount of money, accumulates in the line of credit, and it pays back debt. Month in, month out, month in, month out. So you can see it's just an absolute mirror image of the conventional model. Money accumulates in a checking account. It mirrors itself on the debt side in the line of credit. What it does on the debt side, it's either your income's either saving you interest or it's paying back the debt. 24/7, the income's working against the debt versus above the line on the banking and borrowing side. It's not doing anything. It's just accumulating, and the bank is using that for their purposes. They're out there leveraging it and distributing it for their purpose, where on the equity optimization side, we're doing the exact same thing the bank is doing, leveraging income against the debt, leveraging it and distributing it to pay our bills, and whatever's left over, it's either paying it back, they're saving us interest. So we're emulating and copying the banking model from above. We're just doing it down below on the debt side of the ledger. Same principles apply below as they do above. So here's another way to look at it. We got the conventional model up on top, regular checking account, equity optimization on the bottom. So here's 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, right? We just have accumulation, surplus, accumulates. Now if you take that and mirror it, remember the red is debt, the red charges us interest. We get nothing out of the blue sky, but the red is charging us interest. So if we just mirror the same thing from the conventional into the debt, we've reduced the amount of red in there, which means we have reduced interest. We're paying back and saving money by operating on the equity optimization side. I'm going to give us a couple different views of this. All right, there's our accumulation, our checking account. There's our debt. All right, now this is month to month. So that little green square that just popped up in the debt, that's what happens when we make a payment. We're paying back just a little bit of the debt. So month in, month out, month in and month out, we're paying a little bit back, we're paying a little bit back, and we're not making a lot of headway on the debt, right? So let's assume that that one line, that's about a year's worth of payments, okay? Let's go to the equity optimization side, same amount of accumulation, right? But it's all going into the debt, and we'll give it a little different view to see what the 1 year looks like in the debt. Right? So that's what we can accomplish by driving our income through the debt versus the left side of the conventional. So let's assume that's 1 year's time. Here comes another year. Here comes another year. Conventional, equity optimization. Conventional, equity optimization. We make much faster headway by getting all of our income against the debt. And again, we can do that through a line of credit, because a line of credit is the only debt instrument that allows the same liquidity as the checking account. That's why we use a line of credit. We can get 100% in, get 100% out if we need it. But again, we just continue conventional, barely nipping away at the debt. And on the equity optimization side, we can have it accelerated, the payoff accelerated in quick order. Now, one question people have is, okay, well, what if I got to borrow the money back? Okay, well, let's borrow the money back. So we'll take away, looking on the right side of the page, we just took money out of the line of credit. Okay? Let's take another one out. And then we just had a year fall into the conventional side, right? Now we go back to paying back. If you look at that at a year's time, we took money out for 2 years, put it back in 2 years, and we're still miles ahead of paying off the debt on the equity optimization side versus the conventional side. This is how this works. Money goes in, saves interest, pays off the debt. It's really that simple. All right. Now, let's take that elementary little view of how the world works in this model, and let's go take a look at it in real life. Okay? Now, what you're looking at here is our personal profile at truthandequity.com. When you get into this process with us, right, once we understand how it works, why it works, will it work for you, everybody goes through an analysis process. We're much like a doctor. Doctor's not putting you under the scalpel until he conducts a very, very thorough examination, conducts the tests, etc. We're the same way. We need to get a good look at who you are individually, and that's on the personal side. The investment side, we can take into account every possible aspect of your financial life through this process. And again, we can do anything we want to do once we get there. If you just want to focus on the investment side, we can do that. If we want to work just on the primary home side, any other debts, it really doesn't matter what you want to do. We can customize and tailor the program to accomplish whatever goal you're looking to accomplish. And this is very important. My agenda is your agenda, because I've got nothing else at stake in this thing but to help you get where you want to be as fast as humanly possible. Are you a good candidate or not? I don't know until we go through this profile process. And through this profile, it's a pretty simple form. You can get a little detail, but it's pretty simple because it's stuff that you see every month. So when you go to truthandequity.com, you start off by putting your contact information in here. Obviously, this is a mock. And all I'm looking for is, what do you owe? Primary mortgages. What do you owe in consumer debt, vehicles, student loans, personal lines, etc. Looking for, looking for what do we spend in basic needs, right? Those expenses you're going to have no matter what, if you got debt or not, mortgage payments or not, rental properties or not. You still got to feed the family and keep cell phones to your ears. You need to know what your deposited net income is from all sources, as well as other real estate. So if you've got rental properties that you want to attack, you put them in the other real estate page. Now, how you go through that process, you're not going to have this view. You can't change anything on this page. So once you get into Truth and Equity, this is what your input pages are going to be like. And you're just going to move top to bottom, provide the information as requested. You get to the bottom of the page, save and continue. That's very important, you save and continue, because we have to database this information because it's going to be used on several different levels. And as you save and continue, it's going to take you to the next proper input screen. Income, save and continue. And then I'm not going to go through each one of these pages, but you know you're done when you come to this page. Profile results summary page. When you hit that page, you know you're done with the process. And then once you get here, now keep in mind, once you get to this page, the results on this page are only as good as the accuracy of the numbers previously inputted. And just through my experience of seeing tens and thousands of these come through my website, 9 out of 10 are inaccurate in one degree or another. So if you get to this page and you see some funky numbers like an over 30-year payoff or a negative interest savings, it just means that there's a part of your profile that's incorrect that we can come back and correct it at a later time. So if you see some answers on this page that just don't make sense, don't panic. We'll just go back through your profile and we'll make the necessary corrections. Now, once we have the profile done, we'll reach back out to you and we'll schedule an online meeting where we will validate and verify the accuracy. So if we have that crazy result summary page, we're going to come back and get it to look more realistic. So again, if it's not perfect the first time around, don't worry about it. We're going to get together online and take a look at it, okay, and refine the numbers. Now, with this individual, now this is an actual customer, it's a real life profile. I just changed the name to protect the innocent. But as we look at, he's got a loan value, he's got good credit score. Here's his mortgage balance as it sits today. He's got plenty of equity. We can go get a good line of credit. Here's his current mortgage payment. He's carrying no credit card debt. But the bottom line number, if you guys remember the little color crayon drawing we went through a minute ago, that surplus number, that positive monthly cash flow number is the key, right? Interest or income going into the line is an interest savings mechanism. You cannot save enough interest through this process to pay off in 5 to 7 years. Impossible, won't happen. The positive monthly cash flow number at the end of the day, at the end of the month, this number at the very bottom of the screen, 15, 14, 51, that is your accelerant because that is the net payment against the debt for the month. Income going in saves interest, knowing it's temporary because we have to go get some of it to pay our bills. We go in and get what we need to pay our bills, reconcile at the end of the month the positive monthly cash flow number. This 1514, that is the accelerant, and that's the number you're trying to get to when we go through this profile, because that's going to dictate speed. So once we go through this process online with you, and again, bringing into account any real estate that we've got to play with, once we complete that process, then we're going to go look at what this thing will do within the truth and equity model. Now, if any of you have done any research online about this, the predominant message you're going to hear out there is a first lien Heloc, first mortgage Heloc. Replace what you have with one big Heloc. That's the predominant message you're going to hear. That is one way to do it. That's one way we do it. That's the way we started doing it. But it's not the only way to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what life would look like in a one-loan scenario where this individual has taken their $202,000 Heloc, or first mortgage, and converted it into what we call our executive choice program. One big Heloc, okay? Now into this 1 year at 15, 14, 51 a month, we're looking at a 7-year, 8-month payoff. All right, I'm going to scroll down here a little bit because you guys don't need the extensions box. But if we look at, now this is amortization, right? Just like this is a conventional amortization of the same loan, okay, that they just took out. All right, so each line is each period is a month. We got our monthly payment, we got the principal, we got the interest portion. Well, if we flip back to the truth and equity side, very similar approach. We got a loan balance. Each line is a period, month by month. We got our loan balance, we got our rate, but we've added a couple of lines to this amortization because we've got monthly expenses and monthly income. Because we know monthly income's going into the line, monthly expenses are coming out of the line. Okay? Our monthly interest payment, or our monthly payment is interest only, which is fine. We only want to pay interest as a monthly payment regardless, but that's a monthly interest expense. I'm going to disregard this monthly cash flow number. It's a little confusing, so I'm not going to go through it right here. The yearly tax and insurance line. Now, this is an important line because if you get into a first lien Heloc, you're going to be responsible for your taxes and insurance. So our amortization accounts for the withdrawal of those taxes and insurance on an annual basis. We added a column for withdrawals, so if you wanted to make withdrawals, if you guys as investors, if you want to go utilize the equity in your line to go acquire properties, we'd throw that withdrawal within that line and recalculate. Aside from income going in, if you got anything else as far as additional deposits going in, tax refunds, bonuses, proceeds from, say, flipping a home, what have you, it falls into that column. And then we've got our available funds, which is the difference between our credit limit and our loan balance. So if we add 202 to 15.5, what do we got? We got a HELOC for 217,500. Since we paid off our first mortgage with 202, we've got 15.5 available. And then we just keep a running balance of the interest that we pay in column F. So we just get, at the end of the day, we can compare what's the interest we paid in truth and equity lifestyle compared to the interest we pay in the conventional lifestyle. Hence why we're here. I'm going to scroll all the way down. This guy just followed the rules, made the payment, no additional, played the conventional game. 3 3/4. He's got a great rate on the loan, 3 3/4. But he's still going to pay $135,000 in interest on a conventional loan. In the truth and equity model, again, we start off, we'll get to the accumulated interest here in a second. Let's look how we get through this thing. So if we got $202,000, and if anybody has a calculator and wants to run some of these numbers, check the accuracy, by all means. I'll do it with you. If you put $202,000 in your calculator, that's our opening balance. We've got $7,800 of income that's going to go into the line. So subtract the 7,800 from the 2002. That brings you down to 194.2. Now, that would be the lowest possible balance we could achieve in the line because that's got 100% of our income in. So if we wanted to calculate the best case interest scenario for that month, we multiply the 194.2 by our interest rate of 4%, which is 0.04, and then if we divide by 12, our interest payment is $647.33. If you look at the interest payment calculated here, $673, that's the worst case interest scenario because that's calculated on the 202, not the 194. So if you do the difference, 673 minus the 647, our $7,800 just saved us $26 in interest. Now, $26 in interest on a month, that's not going to get anybody to retire. But I don't know anybody out there, anybody on the phone that's throwing $26 out the window on the freeway. Speak up. But that $26 is back in your pocket in the line of credit, acting as principal reduction. So the $7,800 just got us $26 in interest savings. So if we go back to the 202 minus 7,800, you get us to 194.2, but we've got to go pull out our income, 5,000 for our expenses. So you add that because that brings the balance up to 199.2. We've got an interest payment of 673. That's another expense. So add 673.33. And that equates to 199,873.33, just as that says right here. And that's the opening balance for month 2. So if we work backwards to figure out how much we paid off in the month, subtract the opening balance of $202,000, and we paid back $2,126.67. All right. The difference between 202 and the 199 is $2126.67. So we paid back $2126.67 in a month just by running our income in and out of the line. And this is a little hard to see, but that $2126.67 landed over here in the available funds column. That number is exactly $21.67 more than are available over on the first month. So what we've done here is we've got our cake and eat it too. We can have 100% of our income go into the line to reduce interest and pay back the debt, and we still have access to whatever we put in over in the available funds column because the line of credit has a revolving door. We've got access to any amount of this money at any given time without having to ask anybody's permission. So we just wash, rinse, and repeat that process just like we do out of a normal checking account today. We're just going to do it out of the line of credit. And our balances fall. At the end of the year, we're down to 179.8, which is a pretty good drop. So what do we got? We got 202 start at the beginning of the year, and minus 179.862 at the end of the year. We paid back $22,000 of our mortgage debt, and it's all sitting over here in our available funds column. Now, the conventional amortization table I showed you, this is a brand new loan, okay? So if we follow the rules on this conventional loan, let's see how long it would take us to get to 179.8 under normal circumstances. Now remember, this is the balance column, so in this column right here, we're looking for 179.8, and they're close to it. We'll scroll. 179's right there. 66 months. It would take you 5.5 years under the conventional model to get to 179.8, and we got it there in a year's time. Now, one thing you want to think about through this, looking at the conventional model, in your own head, calculate how much income would flow in and out of your checking account in 5.5 years and you calculate what sort of benefit you're getting out of those deposits over the next 5.5 years in the conventional model versus what it's going to do for you in the truth and equity model. All right. There's nothing more efficient than 100% of your income working against a debt balance 24/7. You can compare it and contrast it to the conventional model all you want. What if I just throw extra money at it? Well, you could throw extra money at your current loan and it'll go away quicker. But if you want to calculate how much of your income is actually being applied to it when you do that, take that amount of money, say it's $1,000, divide it by your net deposited income, and that'll tell you how efficient your money is. And it's not going to be 100%. So always keep in mind, through this model, you've got 100% productivity out of your income versus the conventional model. As we get back to the amortization on this thing again, if you notice, we started at 4%, but I have it jumping to 4.5%. Okay, so I'm building in a 0.5 point bump per year into the model. All right, another thing I'm doing too is if you look at our tax and insurance, we're at $4,200 for the year. I've got them at $4,410 the second year. So I'm also building a 5% increase in your tax and insurance. It's kind of a safeguard for me to make sure that we're protecting you, making sure that your finances, if your finances cannot withstand these bumps in rate in tax and insurance, then you may not be a good candidate. But if your resources can outpace the rate and the tax insurance bump, then you're probably a great candidate. So if you look at here at year 2, we're at 155.5. We go back to the conventional model. It's going to take us a few more years to get to 155.5. We're down here at about right there. So there's 10.5 years conventionally that you can get to 2 under equity optimization. As we just scroll on down, year 3 we're at 5%. We're going to 5.5% at this stage. Tax and insurance are jumping up. Year 4 we're down at 106. If we just continue to scroll, we are paid off in 9 years and 8 months. We've zeroed things out all the way up to 7.5%. In our available funds column, since our balance is 0, we got $217,000 to go play with if we want to. We don't have to touch it. We don't have to do anything, but we've got all that money available to us in the line. And what did we pay in interest? $41,183 in interest. If you want to look at what life is like conventionally, if we spent by the time we hit $41,000 in interest, we'll call that right there. That's in less than 69 months. We're going to spend the same amount of interest, and we're still going to go, $178,612. In the truth and equity model, we can send the same amount of money in interest and be all done. It's a very powerful process. And it's simply 100% of income being applied against a debt balance that's trying to take money from your pocket, applying income 24/7 to that debt. Now that's our executive choice. We also have what we call it as our professional blend. Blend meaning we're going to blend 2 loans together, right? Remember earlier I said the one loan scenario is only one option. It's not the only option. The other option is to blend 2 loans together. So if we come down to the amortization again, if we look at this side, right, that's the Heloc side. Anything below that is identical to what we just looked at here. Okay? So I've just brought this amortization model over to the professional blend, but over on the left side, we've got the first mortgage. Meaning we're going to blend the 2 together. We're going to keep the first mortgage in play, and then we're going to get a second Heloc behind it. Now, why would we want to do a 2-loan scenario versus a 1-loan scenario? Well, it all comes down to analysis and recommendation more than anything else. But if we look at what this individual had for a mortgage and a mortgage rate, 3 3/4 is pretty cheap. And we can just make it cheaper through this process. But more importantly, when we get into the first lien scenario, we're exposing a six-figure income to a variable rate. Now, we just saw in the one loan scenario, it's not too bad. But some people, it's just not the wisest thing to do, right? Not that they couldn't, but sometimes I just don't recommend it. Second of all, when we're learning to implement and deploy a new financial model, we can learn and get acclimated and find our cadence if we operate with a second mortgage and deal with lower loan amount. Because when we've got a two-loan scenario, and we've got that second mortgage Heloc, we're in control of how much we're borrowing and how much we're exposing to the variable rate. So from a safety standpoint, I do more two-loan scenarios than one-loan scenario because we're in control. When we get into a one-loan scenario and we push everything into the line of credit, well, we're just susceptible to market conditions and what life gives us. We got no control. But in the two-loan scenario, we've got all the control in the world. So as I go through this real quick, the first mortgage under this first mortgage header is the standard amortization of that loan. Okay? Nothing tricky about it over on that side. Now on the Heloc side, now this amortization is exactly the same as what we just saw, but I have added one extra column. Withdrawal to first mortgage. Because we're going to use the second to attack the first, this is where we do it. So when we see this figure in this column, and in this case it's $18,500, and keep in mind we're doing this on a $30,000 line of credit. Available funds is $30,000, right? Opening, because we have no balance, opening balance, we haven't used any money yet, so we've got a line of $30,000. And what we're going to do is we're going to take $18,500, and if you follow the cursor, we're going to take that $18,500 and we're going to dump it over here on principal. Okay? Without the $18,500, we took $18,500 away from the $18,800. Our principal portion is $305. We added $18,500 to it, so you can see our balance. We got this big drop in the balance from $202 down to $183. Okay, and now we've got a new balance. This results in $18,500 coming out of the line. We've got a new balance. And we're going to do the exact same thing on this side as we did on the one loan scenario. Income in, expenses out, wash, rinse, and repeat. And we've got that paid off, that $18,500 paid off in a year's time. So what are we going to do? We're going to go grab another $18,500 out of a withdrawal to first mortgage. You can see that lands over on the principal portion. We go from $179 down to $160. And we continue that same process through the second line of credit as we did on the first one, the executive choice. In this regard, the results are about 2 months better. We're at 7 years, 6 months. Now, one interesting thing to pay attention to on this side, on the first mortgage, when we do this, since everything's based on the balance, interest is calculated on the balance. And if you guys do any research, etc., disregard anything and everything you hear from anybody else out there. Take this as the gospel. Interest is calculated the exact same on a first mortgage as it is on a Heloc, as it is on an unsecured line, as it is on a vehicle, student loans, credit cards. Interest is all the same across the board. It's all simple interest based on a balance. It's a balance multiplied by a rate, divided by the billing cycle, and that's your interest payment. If anybody tries to tell you that interest is calculated differently in a Heloc than a first mortgage, they don't know what they're talking about. Now, Helocs, you'll hear average daily balance, average daily balance. Well, we could say the same thing about a first mortgage. It's just that the average daily balance never changes because you only make one payment per month, and for the rest of the month, it has one balance. It's using the calculated interest. The only reason that they say average daily balance on a Heloc is because we can move in and out. That balance may fluctuate up and down, up and down, up and down, and they just use the average. But it's all simple interest. It's all the same thing. If you hear anybody talking about upfront loaded interest on a conventional loan, right, or compounding interest, absolute myths. You cannot compound interest on the debt side of the ledger. That would be illegal. They can't charge you interest on interest earned on a debt. Second of all, you cannot front-end load interest when you're always paying interest in arrears. So if any of you guys have mortgage payments that are due on December 1st, when you make that payment, you are making November's interest payment. That December payment, they've got a principal portion. That's going to come off the balance, and the interest clock is going to start ticking again for December. And January 1's payment is paying interest for December. So you cannot front-end load interest. You cannot compound interest on a conventional mortgage. So if you ever heard that in your past, disregard. It's 100% absolute myth. And if anybody wants to test me on that, we can pull up this conventional amortization table, pick a line. We'll say 63. You pop that into your calculator, you multiply it by 3.75%, divide by 12, and I can guarantee you 100% accuracy, that will be your next interest payment. So that's the number that's going to be in your calculator. So if anybody wants to stop me and do that, speak up and we'll test it. But back to my point is that when we drop this from 202 down to 183, our interest goes from 630 down to 572. Okay? Now, since this payment is set in stone based on the promissory note that you signed, 30-year note at 3 3/4 on 202, that payment's never going to change. But the interest and principal portion will. So when this interest payment drops, it immediately is converted to principal, right? Because it's all built within the same payment. So you get acceleration going on both sides of the fence. You get to add principal to the monthly payment without adding principal to the check because it's built within this payment because we dropped this balance lower. So we've got acceleration going on the first mortgage. We got acceleration going on the Heloc side because we're driving everything we've got to it. And again, we're just going to do this on an annualized basis. And we're just going to wash, rinse, and repeat just like we did previous. And if we scroll down here, we still have the same increases in the interest rate. And if you look at here on month 79, 6.5 years in, we owe $27,706. Okay, we got $30,000 in the line of credit, so we'll just go take the $27,706 from the line, pay that off to zero. So now 6.5 years, we no longer have that mortgage payment. It comes off our expenses over here, and we've got this balance, and we're done down here in line 91. And all we did was change our deposit and income distribution from a checking account to a Heloc, and this is the end result. And after 11 years of doing this, I've got dozens of people that have paid off, and I've got people that have paid off right to the month that I told them. And that's how the program works, gentlemen and ladies. Is there any ladies out there? We operate life out of a Heloc, whether it be a first lien, second lien, it really doesn't matter as long as we've got our income working against debt that's trying to take money out of our pocket. Everybody's got a choice. You got an alternative. You can continue the best one, or you can try something different. And now, Pesh, that's about all I got to tell you.
Oh,
How's it been working? How's it been working for you?
It is working. That's why. So, I started about 6 months ago with Will Westrom, and I can see it working definitely. And as you guys know, any of the webinars I have been doing, I pretty much experiment the strategy on myself first before even inviting the host to speak on, with our group of members, right? So I'm the guinea pig for everyone, and I can tell it's working. Again, I'll let you guys know even in a year how much more I have put down. But so far, I can see, I understand the strategy now. after speaking with Bill for a while, so I recommend there is nothing to lose here. If you are interested, you can reach out to him, put your profile, create your profile, put down all your data, and you can have a one-on-one meeting with him, and he'll tell you if you are a good candidate for this strategy or not, right? And then you can decide if you want to do it or not. But I can see it working.
And that's a good point, Alpesh. Hey, when you guys go to truthandequity.com, if you're going to submit your profile, put Alpesh Parmar in as the referral source, okay? And as far as going through that online meeting with me and the process of analysis, if we, this is what we just witnessed here as a stress test, right? So when we throw your numbers through that same stress test, if I can identify, and we can both see that down the road, if there's a negative economic event, i.e. interest rates, increased expenses, what have you, and you're no longer a good candidate 3, 4, 5 years down the road, this thing stops or starts moving the opposite direction, we're going to identify that, and I'm going to reserve the right to refuse service, right? Because this is about your life. It's not about mine. And as I go through this stress test, if you're not a good candidate, we're just going to shake hands. We're going to figure out a way to do it maybe down the road, but under the current circumstance, I'm not going to send you a ticket to the ball. So this going through the online meeting with me and stress testing it against your actual budget is critical as it relates to me offering or accepting you in as a customer to Truth and Equity. So I highly recommend, if you're gonna contemplate and think about doing this, throw your numbers into the profile. Let's stress test the numbers before anybody makes a determination or recommendation. So I'll open it up to questions if anybody's got any questions.
So we are open for questions. Everyone, Eric and Viren or anyone, Dilip.
Yeah, hi Bill. This is Chirayusha. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. So, question. So the first mortgage and the second Heloc option that you said. So who owns this? The whole thing is the bank or is like a third party, some investor? Who owns this?
Well, in the 2-loan scenario, if we're going to keep your first mortgage, whoever has your mortgage is going to hang on to that one. Uh-huh. And then as far as the HELOC side, it depends on what bank we go with, right?
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right, because we're just I'm not a lender, right? I'm not the money. God knows I wish I was the money. But I'm not the money. No, I want to be the money, believe you me. But, we just I've been doing this for a long time, so, and that's a really good point, is that if you're going to go shopping from a consumer standpoint without the expertise, if you go shopping for a line of credit from the street in, they're all the same. Line of credit, secured by equity in your home.
Sure.
Okay. Well, once you get behind the walls of the banks, right, behind the scenes, that's when they all vary and they all change dramatically because these loans are not sold on the secondary market anymore. There's no secondary market for HELOCs, so every bank is portfolioing, hanging on to each one of their lines of credit. So they dictate the rules. They dictate rate, draw and interest-only terms, monthly repayment terms, transaction restrictions, what you can and cannot do with our online systems. So buyer beware, right, if you're going to go out and do this on your own, because, again, the consumer mentality, the way we've been taught, it's rate. Lowest rate I can get is I got myself the right loan. Well, just recently, I had a guy in California called and said, I've already got my HELOC. I said, great, tell me about it. He can only withdraw he got a great rate, like 1.99 for 2 years. That's what he made his purchase decision on. He can only make 6 withdrawals out of the line per year.
I see. Yeah.
You can't do that. I mean, the poor guy took it up on himself. He knew what he was doing, went and shopped rate. Now he's got a line that he can't even use beyond 6 times a year. So, again, buyer beware. You want to know what you can do with the line to make a decision, not an interest rate. So anyway, I know who to go to, who not to go to. If we're gonna do business together, you want to use one of my preferred lenders or banks that I've used for years. Just know if I put you there, you're in the right spot. If you've got a bank that you want to work with specifically, then I will make a phone call on your behalf. I'll ask all the right questions. I'll bring my expertise and my knowledge to find out if they're the right fit. I'll come back to you and say, well, I couldn't or wouldn't work with them, but it's ultimately your choice. The bank choice is yours, not mine.
The reason I asked Bill the question is because, I mean, the rate I have in my mortgage, I mean, it's one of the best rate I have for my principal. And it seems like the way the whole strategy works is based off of Heloc, which is a variable rate, could be based on what time of the year, and if the market goes good, it's going to go high. So my principal is very low, and at this point, I mean, I don't want to be, I mean, what I got about a year and a half ago is one of the best rates that you can get for this kind of loan. I mean, that's the reason I asked the question. I mean, because if you go and shop right now, I mean, it's going to be market, and I know it's going to be much higher than what I'm paying right now. Because interest is at the end is also one of the key factor of, the whole packet. If the interest is low, if you pay 1% interest for $1 million loan, and if you pay 5% or 10% interest for $100,000 loan, I mean, it's kind of similar thing in some way. I mean, it's a big impact, for your payment. So
I agree 100%.
That's the reason. I mean, I want to know. I mean, how? I mean, the only thing I have still, which is I have to look at the number and figure it out how the Heloc, because you have to pay the interest on Heloc by paying the principal back to the first mortgage from your Heloc, and you paying down every month your Heloc. So the cash flow is very important, seems like, and how much you putting every month in Heloc, right? I mean, extra. So you have your first mortgage that you're paying, which you want to pay, and then this Heloc gonna help you to put the principal down, basically. How fast you can put that Heloc down. Let's see if you pay $50,000 or $10,000 every time from there, and put in principal, and how fast you put it down, how you pay it off, and then do it again. And so I think the strategy-wise, it seems like, and if I'm wrong, tell me that the key is the cash flow going in the Heloc. That's very important as well.
Oh yeah, guaranteed. Now that's an excellent point, right? And this is why I do a 2-loan scenario, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
At 3 3/4, right? If these were my numbers, right, with my level of knowledge and expertise in this thing, if these were my numbers, I wouldn't even convert this into a Heloc. 3 3/4 is cheap. I'm not getting rid of that rate.
Sure.
Right? So in the 2-loan scenario, right, we started at 4 1/4. That's a 0.5 point more than what our first mortgage is, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Now, once we drop the 18.5 on there, we go from 630. Whoops, I'm using the wrong button. 630 down to 572, right? That's a $57 interest savings. But if we go over on the Heloc, it's costing us $60 for the month.
Sure.
So it's actually costing us more on the Heloc that first month.
Yes.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
However, our interest is going to fall by $5 a month on the Heloc, while our interest savings is starting to rise on the first, right? So at a certain point, right, like on this month, now our interest savings from the first month is $58, call it 60, and now our interest is only $55 on the line. So now on paper, we just spent $5 less in interest, and that's going to continue to grow. The interest savings between the two is going to continue to grow because this is falling. Now keep in mind, this is a worst case scenario, right? Because this doesn't include the income. So if we took that line, 14,071, subtracted our income, right? That's going to bring us below $7,000 in balances in our average daily balance. So our interest costs are going to be cut in half, right? So again, we look at it at the, we can look at it on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis, but if we look at it over time, I mean, the interest spent, even though the interest rate is higher than our first, right?
Yeah.
We're only going to spend, in 7.5 years, our interest cost is only $31,000. Okay? So that's at a half a point per year increase. Now let's do something different. Let's double the rate of increase, right? So let's take the Heloc rate increases from a half point every 12 months to a half point every 6 months.
Okay.
Now you can see we're at 4 1/4 to 4 3/4, right? Because one thing about interest rate doesn't cost you the money, right? Like right here at 5 1/4%, everybody would think you'd be picked up a bad drinking habit if you got 5 1/4.
Yeah.
But what's our interest costs right here at 5 1/4? 0. Why? Because we have no balance.
Sure.
Interest rate is just a number. If we have no balance, it costs us no money. As soon as we have a balance, now we've got cost.
Yes.
Right? But let me recalculate the table, right? We're at 7 years and 6 months with a payoff projection with 31,313 in interest. So let's recalculate to double the rate increase, and let's see if our payoff projection changes. Now our interest cost is going to change, guaranteed, because we just doubled the rate of increase. But let's see how much. Give it a second to recalculate.
Yeah, so what he's saying is if you don't take any more loans, that if interest rate goes really high because of some reason after 5 years, then probably it's not the wise idea to put the loan and put the money in the principal from your basically Heloc. Just keep the balance 0.
Okay, so there's our new payoff projection. Did our payoff projection change at all? 7 years, 6 months, exactly as it was at a half point per year. Let's scroll down. Here's our payoff line, and our interest went to $32,847. So what did that cost us? That cost us $1,500 in interest over a 7.5 year time frame, with the rate going through the roof. Right? We're at 11 1/4 by the time we get this thing paid off. Right? Now, let me show you something real interesting, right? Because I know all you guys have heard, if rate goes up, payment goes up, right?
I mean,
well, let's see. When the rate goes up, it affects our payment. So right here, I'm just going to pick this line, 9 3/4, our payment is 106 rounded. We jump to 10 1/4, and our payment goes to 99. How in God's green earth can the rate rise and the payment fall?
Yeah.
Why? Because it's based on the balance. We're driving the balance down faster than the rate can keep up. Right? We can scroll up. Let's look at another one. Right? Let's go from 8 3/4 to 9 1/4.
Just a quick question, Bill. On the driving balance down faster, but we paying the same amount. The check-in, check-out from the Heloc or the amount of money in and out is still same, right? Like they're not changing. That's not changing. So if that's the case, let's see, because the amount is gone down.
Well, here's the kicker, right? Now, granted, our income and our expenses are identical all the way down, right? It's all linear.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's calculate that. $7,800 in income. And forget the interest cost. $7,800 in income minus $62,8549 in expenses is $15,1451. Okay. Now, where did we see that number before? It was early in our discussion here. There's our positive cash flow number. Okay?
Yeah.
Same as it's reading over here. Right? So from month 1 to month 90, that 15,1451 is our positive cash flow number. So regardless of expenses and income rises and falls, if we average that 15, 14, 51, if we average that positive cash flow number, I'm talking average, right? If we average that over the lifespan of this thing, you're guaranteed to hit the result because that's the number that was used to calculate this payoff. So, and once you go live, the income and expenses are always going to ebb and flow, right? This becomes a living and breathing animal like your checking account because, hey, we got more income or less income. Expenses are never the same month to month. Those ebb and flow every month, right? No matter what we do. But as long as we average 15, 14, 51 as our positive cash flow number over time, we're guaranteed to hit the result. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Because that's the number that's being used as the accelerant to achieve 7 years and 6 months. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So anyone else have questions? Anyone else have questions?
Yes, this is Viren Bill. I'd like to ask you the question on the very first scenario. So could you go back to that screen because I kind of missed that one a little bit.
Which screen?
The very first scenario that you had before without the Heloc.
The profile screen?
Uh-huh.
This one?
No, not that one. The second, the scenario after this one.
The executive choice?
With just mortgage, right?
Or the conventional amortization screen?
Yeah, so that that one so that's fine. So conventional and the first scenario that you had to pay off this debt faster, right? So yeah, what's the difference that one versus the Heloc? So what did you do differently here?
Well, this is just everything in one big Heloc, right? Our executive choice, it's a first mortgage, first lien line of credit. So you would convert your conventional loan that you have currently into one big line of credit. It's just a refinance. You're going to refinance away from a 30-year into a 30-year promissory note into a Heloc agreement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this view right here is just simply what life looks like if you convert the big balance into one big line of credit.
Got it. Makes sense. And my second question is, so for all of these services, what sort of fees do you charge for this thing?
My fee is $3,000, $2,995.
For this whole thing?
Yep, for the whole thing. And the good news is, I don't charge you a fee until we have a loan in place. So I'm going to help you get the loan for free. And if we don't get the loan for one reason or another, you don't pay my fee. But once we do get the loan, you pay my fee, and then we get into the implementation process, and we become long-term friends.
Got it. Makes sense.
I got a question real quick. So your accelerator of 15,451, if I were just to pay that every month without doing the whole loan process, it would equal the same thing, right? If I just took the principal towards principal every month?
It might come close, right? It might come close to that, but look at the efficiency model, right? What's again, you could do that. You're going to accomplish a goal, right? Because you're following the universal law of debt repayment or accelerated debt repayment. The only way to do it, and I don't care if it's me, Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, or anybody else. The only way to make a debt go away quicker is throw more money at it, right? Now, first of all, if you do that, right, you still have the rest of your income sitting in a checking account doing nothing, right, while the debt is still charging you the max amount of interest, right? So you're not getting any use out of your income. You're still playing within the confines of the conventional model, right? And no matter if you stay within the conventional model, it's only going to give you so much, just purely based on design, right? If you want to get more out of it, pardon me.
The end result's the same, like debt free.
No, it's probably going to be close because again, it's still the same number, right? But here's another thing that most people don't take into account, right? And that 1541, right? 1514 is 100% of your discretionary income, right? Now, let's reverse the roles, right? I come to you and I say, hey, I'm thinking about throwing 100% of my discretionary income into my loan, and I'm going to lose all liquidity and access to that money. Would you tell me that would be a very wise thing to do or very unwise to do?
I guess it depends how much I needed it.
Bottom line is, right, you never tell anybody to go throw 100% of their discretionary income into somebody else's treasure chest. That'd be nuts. Be unwise. Because what happens when you need the money? Really need the money, right? You have to go cash out, refinance to go get access to everything that you threw at them. And if you're not lendable, you're unlendable. You're not getting a dime. So the bottom line is I would never recommend anybody to do that. So what we have to determine is, okay, what percentage of the 15 are you willing to throw at it? Let's say it's 50%. Let's say it's 750. Okay. So you're going to maintain 750 in savings, and you're going to throw 750 at your current mortgage. Well, right there, you just cut your efficiency in half. You're never going to achieve the same goal because you're not using 100% of the discretionary income. You're only using 50% of it. And your income is still not doing the same, still sitting around and residing in the conventional checking account. So in reality, you'd never do what you just proposed, or you shouldn't do everything you just proposed. But from the mathematical standpoint, yeah, it might come pretty close. But again,
I guess it's your discretionary income. I just meant with that scenario. So if my discretionary income is $5,000, but I'm in that same scenario and I decide I want to put 1540 to make it, the numbers would be the same. But I see what you're saying. I don't get the benefit, and I'm using all my discretionary. I see what you're saying, but
okay, good.
Financially, the result will be the same if I just match whatever that accelerator is.
Yeah, you're pretty much, yeah. It's going to be pretty damn close. Because again, the formula
it should be
balanced.
Exactly balanced, right?
Yeah, it should be virtually almost identical. Because balance divided by surplus divided by 12 will give you payoff in years. But you are right.
Yeah,
nobody can skirt that.
Same note on that, Bill. Cyril, again, is because I think if you get another Heloc, so if you need money, I mean, I don't know the detail about it, but you can get the money from your Heloc loan anytime you want, and you pay off the principal from every month from your checking account. Let's say if you need some more money, or if you need emergency money, then you just get from the Heloc, or just get from there. And then, so you have to open some kind of equity line of credit, but then that is accessible to you anytime you want, and you put those extra the money that you got towards your principal. I mean, that might, I don't know how going to be different than what you're proposing, but it's mathematically it should be the somewhat very equivalent thing.
I think I might have lost, if you had a question, I think I might have lost it in translation.
So, I think it's about 10:30. So if people don't have any other questions, you guys can reach out to Bill.
I have a couple of quick ones.
Okay.
So
sure.
by doing this Heloc and putting all the money, your paycheck and all of that into the Heloc, the other thing is you're also, if you pay it off, the other benefit you're losing is the tax benefit, right? By writing the interest or whatnot. Does that over time make a significant amount of difference in terms of that?
Well, the tax benefits, that's a tricky one. No, that's not really tricky from my standpoint, because the tax benefit of mortgage, deductible mortgage interest, you're never getting back what you pay in, right? So if you've got $10,000 in mortgage interest that you're deducting, the net benefit to you is $3,000, right?
Yeah. You're
going to lose $7,000 to save $3,000. I'll tell you what, I'd rather lose $3,000 and keep $7,000.
Mm-hmm.
The mortgage interest deduction is is a myth. Yeah, it looks good on the tax return, but everybody forgets everything they did for the previous 12 months, right? How much did I lose to save $3,000? And you're always going to lose more than you're ever going to get back from the IRS.
Okay.
But in closing, when we're comparing the two models, right? If you run within the conventional model, you're playing the bank's rules, bank's game, and you're letting the bank run the show. Under the truth and equity model, you're now operating your own banking system, right? You're operating like a bank. So here's the deal. Either way you go, conventional or the truth and equity side, the bank is going to win. You just have to decide what bank you want to let win, you or them. That's it.
Okay. The other question is, by doing this HELOC and other things, right, I guess you're restricted, or if you wanted to get an investment home or something, that might not work out well with the HELOC, right?
Oh, no, it'll work phenomenally well. Right. Now, this wasn't the venue, but I know you guys are, all in the investment side of things. So when we have our personalized one-on-one meeting, then we'll really get into the investment side, utilizing this for the investment side. Because I work with several investors, right, brand new investors. I've got guys picking up properties twice as fast through this model than they were under the conventional model. And again, if we have one-on-one meetings, we can get far deeper into those details, run numbers and stress test it and play all sorts of scenarios. Today just wasn't the venue to do that.
Yeah, because my understanding is probably this better when you get an investment property and then use HELOC, and then that multiplies or accelerates the down payment on that property to make it debt-free over time. Because you're just putting the money that you're getting from the income, rent income, back into the HELOC and then let it, pay off the way you've been explaining in the model. But doing a primary home might not be as efficient.
Well,
I don't know if you're saying that.
Well, that all comes down to, how financing is structured, right? Because I'm always, my recommendation, and 10 out of 10 times, we're going to operate out of one line of credit. I don't care if it's on the primary home. I don't care where the line of credit is. But we want to run out of one line, because if we run out of more than one line of credit, right, if we have multiple lines of credit, now we have multiple debts that are exposed to a variable rate, right? And we need to attack all of them. So if we've got multiple lines, we just have to split up the income to attack each one. That reduces the efficiency of the income in the program itself. So what I like to do is just run out of one line of credit. So 100% of income is going against whatever balance we have. We'll deal with the rest of it. And I liken it to either shooting, if you go hunting, if you're going deer hunting, right? If you use a shotgun, one BB, two BBs, three BBs, they don't have any knockdown power, right? But if we use a 30-06, one bullet, we're going to drop that thing in a heartbeat. So that's why I don't like multiple lines spread out, because it's like using a shotgun. It minimizes the knockdown power of each individual deposit, because the deposits are smaller going into each line versus aggregate total going into one line against one balance. Much more power.
Okay.
Again, that's part of my service to you when it comes to moving forward and picking up properties. I'm here to strategize. What's the best way to go? What should we do? And it's all a matter of, where you're going, what do the numbers look like? Let's stress test it. Let's move them around. Let's play with the numbers and see what the best move, smartest move is.
So, Bill, in your experience so far, what model would you recommend? Like, I'm asking as a customer perspective point of view, which is like, well, the best scenario could be like buy the home in cash. Well, I don't have enough cash to buy the whole home in one shot. So I have to get a loan. Now, would you rather go on the conventional side, or the first HELOC, or the conventional and HELOC altogether? What would be your preference to minimize the overall risk plus maximizing the gain?
My recommendation 9 out of 10 times when we're picking up a rental property is we're going to utilize the HELOC for a down payment, and we're going to get conventional financing for the rest of it, right? And just strategize and attack everything, as prescribed. But the reason that I do that is, again, rental properties have risk associated, i.e., vacancies and et cetera, and I don't want to expose the bulk of the debt on that rental property to a variable rate. That can be catastrophic. So we combine the conventional with the HELOC for safety and optimal results moving forward. And again, it comes down to what's the best way to go. Let's run the numbers. It all comes down to your numbers and where it's going to take us. So that's my general recommendation, but it's, again, the end of the day recommendation is through analysis, run the numbers, what's the best thing to do, as well as what do you want to do. If we're talking about one rental property, okay, well, that's one strategy. If we're talking about, if your goal is to pick up 4, 5, 6, 10 properties, well, then my recommendation is going to be based on building that portfolio, because that's generally the priority. And we can forecast and strategize and look at the future based on your goals. What are the numbers going to look like, and go from there.
I see.
So not one size fits